Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to sort of tear down that myth of the overnight success story. We want to reveal that the people who really build lasting companies, they aren't just strategists. They're masters of this unexpected paradox, knowing when to be incredibly gritty and maybe more importantly, when to ruthlessly quit. You've sent us a fantastic collection of insights, really, wisdom from top founders and leaders. And our mission today is basically to distill all that into actionable knowledge for you.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's not just about, the tactical moves or the market strategies everyone talks about. It's really fundamentally about the core mindset and the internal strength you actually need to bring something totally new into the world. So we'll unpack those maybe surprising facts and the core principles that, truly matter for anyone charting their own course through all that uncertainty.
Absolutely, because what we think we'll find, what the sources suggest, is that the journey of building, whether it's a company or a team or even just a big project, it's often less about those grand, sweeping plans and much, much more about like daily discipline, constant iteration, and just that unwavering will to push through when things inevitably get tough.
Okay, so let's unpack this first core idea, that success, especially when you're building something from scratch, it really is all long haul. One source I thought captured this perfectly. It said entrepreneurship can often feel like eating glass and staring into the abyss. I mean, that sounds pretty brutal, right?
It does sound brutal. And what's fascinating is how that long haul tenacity, well, it manifests as pure grit. It means, not waiting around for others to build things for you. It means consistently punching above your weight class and having this deep confidence. Although, and this is key, it's always got to be tempered with a healthy dose of humility and focus. Anchoring yourself by constantly asking, okay, what is this thing supposed to be when it grows up? That clear vision, that's what guides every single gritty step forward. Yeah, we hear that all the time, grit is everything, just power through. But here's where Annie Duke drops, like a real bombshell, a really counterintuitive insight. She says the very grit that allows us to power through will also get us to stick to things that aren't worthwhile. So how do you square that? It really sounds like grit can be a double-edged sword.
Oh, it absolutely is. And that's the really profound nuance here, isn't it? Duke explains that real success comes not just from sticking with it, but from mastering the art of, sticking to the stuff that's working and quitting the rest. Think about Astro Teller's famous example from Google X, the monkey juggling flaming torches.
Right.
You don't build the whole circus tent, the whole infrastructure, if the monkey can't even juggle one torch. You tackle the absolute hardest, riskiest part first. If that core thing doesn't work, you pivot or you quit that approach. That's what intelligent grit looks like.
And this kind of intelligent tenacity, it's not just for the founders at the top, right? How do you actually screen for that? Like in your whole team, what does it look like when you're trying to hire for this?
Yeah, that's crucial. You have to build it into the culture. Arnoldy, for instance, he asked candidates if they feel lucky to be where they are in their career. He's looking for that optimism, that sense of gratitude, maybe.
Interesting.
And he also probes about times they took a risk and failed versus when they succeeded. He's specifically digging for resilience, how they handled setbacks, and also humility when they talk about success. Those kinds of questions really help reveal that underlying grit and, importantly, adaptability.
And beyond just the intellectual grit, this whole journey, it sounds like it demands immense emotional resilience. Mathilde Collin, the CEO of Front, she shared that even what looked like a really smooth fundraising round from the outside was actually, for her, incredibly tough. And mostly because of the constant sting of rejection and just needing to absorb all that gore, it seems like that emotional toll is just unavoidable.
It really is. And that connects directly to a deeper sort of internal battle that goes on. Molly Graham, who worked at Google and Facebook, she makes this critical point about not letting
Bob.
Bob. It's her term for that part of us that fights for credit or obsesses over titles or gets fixated on personal recognition. If Bob takes over, a startup's culture can just quickly devolve into internal fighting, like fighting for control instead of everyone focusing on what's genuinely right for the company's mission. For its future, it's really about prioritizing the collective good. Always.
Okay, so let's say you've cultivated that deep, unwavering grit, and you've learned to keep Bob in check. What comes next? Well, the most successful builders also seem to understand that real progress isn't about being rigid, it's about continuous evolution. Which brings us nicely to our second core theme, the adaptable learner. It's really all about being like fixed on a goal, but flexible on the details. Josh Kapelman really drove this point home. He said something like, Planning for uncertainty is a skill that founders need to continually sharpen. You just have to be ready to adjust your sails when the winds inevitably change direction on you.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to see how different companies, really based on their operational maturities and their market conditions, how they need to adapt their planning.
Right.
Rama Katkar, the CFO at Notion, she highlighted this perfectly by contrasting her experience at Instacart, which, saw that insane viral growth during the pandemic.
Right. Crazy times.
Totally. Contrasting that with Notion's really rigorous forecasting needs now. Instacart's growth wasn't marketing-led. It was organic, almost chaotic in a way. Forecasting for that kind of environment is just vastly different from a more mature company like Notion that requires precise, data-driven planning. You just can't apply a one-size-fits-all playbook.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? It means really embracing a learner's mindset. Every setback, it isn't a failure, it's just more data. Every unexpected turn, it's an experiment. Shruti Gadiali's advice really resonates here. Don't rest on your laurels and always stay open to feedback, even if you disagree. She even identifies adaptable learners in interviews by asking candidates about, new things they've tried recently. She's looking for that inherent curiosity. So how do you, as an individual, really foster that kind of continuous growth?
Well, to take that a step further, Amber Young, who worked at Facebook and Stripe, she emphasizes that personal growth is compounded by company growth, which is a great way to put it. And she describes her own learning journey by piloting new internal programs, reaching out to peers and former managers for advice, and actively seeking out coaching and training. That a really proactive, multifaceted approach to continuous self-improvement. It shows that learning isn't just about, formal education. It's about active, daily engagement with challenges and opportunities.
And you can apply this continuous learning idea in incredibly practical ways, too. For instance, Schmuckler apparently used A/B testing almost as a management practice. He used it to resolve debates between his visionary PMs, the product managers with a really strong innovative vision, and the data-driven PMs who argued for more conservative, maybe data-backed approaches.
The classic tension.
Exactly. So instead of endless debate or the leader just making an arbitrary call, they'd simply test both theories, let the data be the judge. It kind of empowers everyone and avoids a lot of unnecessary conflict, right?
Right. Which raises a really important question. How do you actually build this self-awareness and intuition, especially when things are moving so incredibly fast? Structured self-reflection seems key. Fiji Simo, who's now the CEO of Instacart, she holds weekly clarity meetings. Just to align her personal priorities with her team's priorities, making sure her actions actually support her intentions.
Simple but powerful.
Yeah. And executive coach Elisa Cohn uses these self-examination exercises. She asks founders questions like, what energized me so far today? Or what discouraged me? Just simple prompts to help them understand their own patterns and, over time, build that crucial intuition.
And all of this, it kind of circles back to the undeniable value of becoming what Shivani Berry calls a feedback magnet.
Ooh, I like that term.
Yeah, me too. It's not just about receiving feedback passively, but actively attracting it. Sarah Tavel-Anholt reinforces this. She suggests you actively ask for feedback from your co-founders, from investors, from peers. It just helps you get out of your own head, right? Challenge your own assumptions and validate that you're actually heading in the right direction. Because, you might be the expert on your intentions, but everyone else, they're the expert on your impact.
Okay, so beyond the tactics and the learning curves, building something new is, at its heart, profoundly human. And what's really intriguing here is the unique psychological makeup of founders that some sources point to. They're often described as being closer to artists than engineers or marketers, driven by this depth vision, this passion to just create something new. Think about the Squarespace founder, Anthony Casalina. His success apparently stemmed from his intense drive to be detailed and his obsessive taste for a better way to build websites. That artistic drive to perfect something, that seems to be a real hallmark.
And this creative, often you could say obsessive drive, it frequently ties into something bigger, a higher purpose beyond just the product. Look at Homa CEO Harry Ritter. He started out as a medical doctor, right? He saw the discomfort around mental health discussions in primary care settings, and he pivoted his whole company to focus specifically on mental health solutions.
Wow.
Yeah, his personal journey directly informed the profound impact his company aimed to make. It really shows how purpose can become the actual bedrock of your entire endeavor.
And building on that idea of the human element, Don Fall, who used to be head of operations at Pinterest, he makes a really powerful point. He says, being vulnerable is one of the most powerful things you can do as a leader because it shows you're genuine. Yeah. Being genuine builds trust. Trust is the key to getting anything done.
Hmm.
So it's not presented as a weakness at all. It's actually a strength that encourages others to also be genuine and open up.
Right. And this vulnerability, it isn't just theoretical, it actually fosters real trust. And maybe surprisingly, it even helps deliver tough feedback effectively. In some leadership training programs, the facilitators often go first. They share their own struggles, their own mistakes. Like Jonathan tells the story about how he got so stressed out firing someone once that he actually threw up afterwards.
Oh, wow. That's raw.
It is raw.
Mm.
But that kind of honesty, it creates reciprocity. And sometimes, look, feedback just needs to be blunt to land. Kim Scott tells that famous story about Sheryl Sandberg. After trying gently to give feedback, Sandberg finally just told her directly, when you say every third word, it makes you sound stupid.
Ouch. Erect.
Super direct. But that directness, while maybe jarring, was what finally helped her actually hear it and improve.
Okay, all of this, the intensity, the vulnerability, the constant feedback, it brings us inevitably to the critical aspect of self-care and resilience. Sarah Tavel Anhalt offers this really powerful warning against being completely invested in only one part of our lives,
Yeah?
which is so easy to do when you're building something.
Totally.
But if your entire identity is tied up in your work, especially in this super volatile startup world, setbacks can feel like your whole life is just, well, on fire. Diversifying your identity, finding other sources of meaning and value, it's essential. Essential to prevent burnout and just sustain yourself for that long haul we talked about.
So when everything feels like eating glass, what are the practical guardrails you can actually put in place for yourself? Liz Fosslien, who interestingly combines economics and art, she offers some really actionable self-care tips like go to bed angry, which sounds weird, but her point is don't force a resolution when emotions are running super high.
Yeah.
Sleep on it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Also, walk it off before walking back into difficult conversations. Just get some space, gain perspective. And when giving feedback, make an observation, not a generalization, to keep the dialogue constructive. It's really all about managing your own emotional state so you can be more effective. And beyond that, obviously, physical well-being is paramount, as Verisin reminds us. And discussions about mental health, they should be explicit at work, not taboo, as Archbold points out. It all contributes to sustained performance in the end. Okay, so you've got the grit, you've got the continuous learning mindset, you've got a solid human foundation built on purpose and self-care, but none of that matters quite as much if your idea isn't right for this specific moment. Which brings us to a really crucial element when you're building something new, the why now case. This is basically your ability to articulate why your idea isn't just good in general, but why it's incredibly relevant and compelling today, right now, given current market shifts, technology trends, whatever it is.
Exactly. And this why now is maybe even more critical in today's investment climate. It seems much harder now for companies to just spend limitless money building up supplier demand from scratch. As Casey Winters emphasizes, you really need some kind of unique data advantage or acquisition loop, something that offers a cheaper, more efficient way to scale liquidity in whatever marketplace you're in. The why now has to clearly show that you can thrive without needing endless piles of cash, that the moment itself is actually an unfair advantage for you.
Clay's story, their 7-year overnight success, is such a prime example of nailing the why now eventually.
Right, 7 years.
Yeah. For years, they were building this broad productivity tool, had some moderate traction, nothing explosive. Their explosive growth didn't actually come until they made this complete commitment to an incredibly narrow wedge. Specifically, data enrichment tools for cold email agencies.
Super specific.
Right. They didn't hit it big until they could articulate exactly why now was the perfect moment for that specific focused solution. They capitalized on a really clear, immediate market need that emerged. So how did they finally, unlock that why now?
Well, sometimes it's almost organic validation that comes from your users. Gong, the revenue intelligence tool, they found their why now pretty early on.
Yeah.
It happened when their users literally started telling us, how come you didn't record this call?
Oh, they just demanded it.
They demanded it. That
Yeah.
wasn't just feedback. It was this powerful, undeniable signal of the product's value and its timely necessity. It showed that users couldn't really imagine working without it anymore. That validates the why now in probably the most potent way possible, through genuine, unmet vocal user demand. Hashtag outro.
So you've taken a deep dive with us today through really the essential mindsets for building something new and lasting. We've explored that tenacious spirit you need for the long haul, the adaptable learner's embrace of continuous evolution, the critical human element of purpose, authenticity, and importantly, self-care. And finally, that crucial why now case that really defines your timely advantage in the market. And remember, these aren't just, abstract concepts. They are actionable mindsets, actual behaviors drawn directly from the front lines of company building.
Precisely. And being well informed, as we've seen, isn't just about having the data or the strategy. It's really about understanding that human element, understanding the core principles that truly stand the test of time, regardless of market shifts or the latest tech trends. These insights hopefully offer you a bit of a shortcut to navigate all that uncertainty, to build with more resilience, and ultimately to thrive.
And as we wrap up, here's maybe a provocative thought for you to chew on. While we've talked a lot about how grit often means sticking with something for the long haul, consider this: what if true mastery in this constantly evolving world isn't just about knowing when to quit a failing project? What if it's also about continuously challenging and maybe even quitting your own deeply held assumptions, your long-standing processes, maybe even parts of your own identity that no longer serve your evolving purpose? How might that kind of radical self-disruption unlock your next level of growth?